Walking across Iceland's hills, where the wind never seems to rest and the land feels ancient, you might notice something unusual, a strange shape covered in green. At first glance, it looks like a small hill, but is not a hill. It is not a ruin. It is a house. A house that does not rise from the ground, but seems to grow directly out of it. These are the Torfbæir, the ancient Icelandic turf houses, and their story is far more human than it may appear. The Torfbæir date back more than 1,000 years, around the 9th century, when the first Viking settlers arrived in Iceland. They encountered a harsh land, isolated and almost completely without trees. Wood was rare, precious, not enough to build traditional houses, so they did what humans have always done in extreme places. They observed the environment and adapted. They used what was available: lava stone, earth, grass, and turf. This is how an architecture was born that did not challenge nature, but worked with it. The structure was simple, yet extremely effective. Foundations were built with lava stone, both light and durable. The external walls were made of turf blocks mixed with stones. Wood was used only where it was strictly necessary for the roof structure and the facade, but the most fascinating detail was above their heads. The roof was covered with turf and living grass. Over time, the house disappeared into the landscape. This was not aesthetic. It was thermal insulation. It was survival. Many turf houses were built against hillsides. This reduced wind exposure and increased protection. Interiors were often dug 2 meters below ground level, preventing floors from freezing. Doors were low, windows were small. Every detail tells the same story. This was not about comfort, it was about enduring the winter. These houses were not only shelters from the cold, they were places of shared life. Several families lived in connected buildings, including barns and stables. At the center, there was often a single hearth, always burning, one fire for many people. In such isolation, community was not a romantic idea. It was a necessity. Turf houses were not eternal. Turf wears down and required constant maintenance. On average, they lasted about 70 years, though some survived for centuries. In the 20th century, modern housing spread and turf houses slowly disappeared, not because they failed, but because the world changed. Today, many Torfbæir are museums and protected cultural heritage sites. Places like Torfbæir preserve a simple, harsh, shared way of life. These houses are candidates for UNESCO World Heritage status, not for their grandeur, but for what they represent: an architecture born from limits and adaptation. The Torfbæir do not dominate the landscape. They exist quietly, almost hidden, as if the earth itself had accepted them. And perhaps today, in a world that keeps building higher, it is worth stopping for a moment and asking, what did we lose when we stopped building like this?